Okay, so guys, so far we have completed our 3-day demo series where we were trying to understand or build from the basics about the business analyst role as such, what it does, and the training program in detail, how it will help us cover the different aspects related to business analyst. Okay. And we said the first week when we were going through the training program, we mentioned that during the first week, the focus will be on building the basics. That is, trying to understand about the IT industry, the team structure, and some of the common terms in use. Okay. So as part of that, yesterday we were going through two key concepts. One is the type of IT companies. We looked at product based and service based companies. What are they? What kind of work they do? Okay. And what are some of the examples of such companies? Then we also looked at pre-project activities. Okay. These are the set of activities that that actually leads to generation of clients. Okay. So before we start any software development work, there are some background activities that take place which will help us sign a deal with a client. Okay. So we looked at RFI, request for information, RFP, request for proposal, RFQ, request for quotation, and then contract negotiations. Okay. And the end product of that process was that we have an SOW or statement of work signed between the IT company and the client themselves. Now, once we have the contract signed between the two, what happens next? Okay. So next, before we jump into the software development world, what happens in software development, how things move forward. Before we understand that software development and understand how a BA contributes in the software development, let's first understand some of the commonly used terms. Now, the intention is that once we go through these terms, okay, they don't have to be uh, repeated as in these are the terms that we will be using going forward in our classes. Okay, I'm just highlighting it for reference. These are the terms that we will be even trying to use in our regular professional aspects, or even if not possible professionally, then at least during the class. The intention is that once we get used to these terms, okay, every interview that we appear for, every job that we start doing as a business analyst, okay, we will be referring to these terms only. Okay. See, the difference between a developer appearing for a BA job and a BA appearing for a BA job interview is very simple. As an interviewer, we often look for the usage of terms. For example, a developer or a QA who is trying to impose as a BA will say that as a BA, I work with the clients to gather requirements. Okay. Whereas a BA will give the answer to the same question as a BA, I often work with or I conduct several meetings with the stakeholders to gather requirements by using appropriate elicitation techniques. Okay. Once done, all the requirements are documented and sent to stakeholders for their review and sign off. Okay. So you see the difference. Okay. I mean, technically BA is doing the same thing, but the presentation of the information matters. So that is the intention behind going through these terms. Once you understand these terms, we will be using these terms not just during our classes, but also ensure that if you are already working in the IT industry or if non-IT as well, wherever applicable, if you can talk through these terms only, so that it becomes a habit for you, rather than trying to memorize these terms on the day of interview. It will be easier if we bring them into our day to day habit. Okay, so that way you don't have to worry on the last day. If you are well prepared for the interviews, it becomes easier to clear interviews. Now, in such regard, the first term is statement of work. Okay, we looked at this term yesterday. So, statement of work, which is also often abbreviated as SOW. Okay, so let me write it down here. Now, it is one such binding agreement between the customer, that is nothing but the stakeholder, and the IT organization. Okay, which describes in detail what kind of work needs to be performed, what will be the penalty if work is not performed, what if someone wants to cancel the contract, okay? Are there any data access related restrictions, okay? Who will be the point of contact? So basically it describes in detail the working agreement between this customer and the IT company. Okay, so that's the starting point, or that's the you can say that's the rule book. Okay. Since it's a rule book, it is not often used on a day-to-day basis, but it is kind of kept in mind. If I have any questions, any doubts related to whether a particular data can be shared with set of individuals or not, okay, what kind of work we have to perform, then SOW is the place to look for. Are you going to look at SOW on day-to-day basis as a BA? No. But as a BA, we must be aware of that there is something called SOW, so that when people talk about SOW, when people refer to the term SOW or statement of the work, we are not perplexed or thinking that what are they talking about. Okay. The second keyword that we want to discuss is scope. Okay. As a BA, you will often hear the word scope coming in as, what's the scope of this project? Okay. What's the scope that we are talking about? Okay. Have you documented the scope of the work? So what exactly is this scope? Scope is basically defining the boundaries of the work that we are doing. Okay. On if we apply the same definition on a larger extent, it is defining the boundaries of the software or the product that we are building. What is meant by boundaries? Boundaries is basically identifying what will be included in the product and what will not be included in the product. Okay. To give you an example, suppose if we are going to build an e-commerce platform. Okay. We say that in e-commerce platform, as of now, we will be not building any online payment system. Okay. Customers will have to go for or opt for cash on delivery. So what we said, we are going to build an e-commerce platform that is included e-commerce platform with features like login, search, address. These all will be included. Okay. And we can say that online payment in the app itself will be excluded. Okay. Now, why we want to define what is included, what is excluded, what's the advantage that we get while doing this? Okay. So this inclusion exclusion activity, as I said, is defining boundaries. Boundaries will help us formulate the scope, and the scope will help us define what a product will do versus what a product will not do. If we don't define the scope, the customer will have endless expectation from the product. For example, when you buy a TV, the product comes with a fixed scope. Okay, a television unit will only help you access maybe OTT platforms, maybe the dish TV kind of stuff. Okay? But can you use a television unit for washing your clothes? No. Why can't I use my television unit for washing clothes? Because that is outside boundaries of usage of television unit. So whenever we try to build a product, we often limit the usage of the product by defining boundaries. These boundaries will help ensure that I have a fixed set of features to work on, so that I build a good product. I don't get into the trap of building an endless product which doesn't have any ending at all, and every day I keep adding new feature and feature, because we never defined the boundaries. So even customer is keep on asking for more and more expansion. It's not that once we have defined a scope we cannot change it. We can definitely change it, but assuming that, if I tell you just walk, okay, what will you ask me? Where do I have to walk? For how long do I have to walk? Okay, if I tell you walk for 100 hours, you will automatically tell me that, Rahul, you are crazy. Who will walk for 100 hours? But on the contrary, if I put up a boundary that, just walk for 1 hour, then take 1 hour rest, then again walk for 1 hour, like that do for 12 hours, and then after that you can stop your walk. Okay? Now defining fixed boundaries will help me clearly picturize the work that I am doing. Okay, so that's why scoping is important. Even when we look at the requirement documents that we create, the requirement documents have specific sections for scope, to highlight what will be included versus what will not be included. This scoping will help us picturize the work that we have to do, and then accordingly be able to plan the work. Okay. Then the next one is often abbreviated as CR, but it stands for change request or change in requirement. Okay. Most often the full form of CR is change request. Okay, so basically what it means is there is an existing product and customer wants enhancement on top of it. For example, the customer has an e-commerce platform, and currently the e-commerce platform doesn't offer online payment, so the customer wants to enhance it. So the customer is coming back and saying, hey, I will raise a CR, that is change request, and that request basically is to include online payment in my e-commerce platform. Okay, so CR or change request basically implies changes in requirement in the existing product. Okay, the other one is change requirement. That means when you are working on writing down requirements or code, at that point in time, client requests for a change. Okay, so while you are working on a project on a requirement, the client wants the requirement to be changed. That is called as change requirement. Okay, so just to illustrate further with the example, suppose a CR or a change request would be add the online payment in the e-commerce platform. Okay, a change requirement would be, suppose client mentioned that add keep UPI as the default online payment option. Okay, Later client comes and says that, you know what, I don't want UPI as the default option, I want credit card as the default payment option. Okay. Now you see the difference. My online payment setup is the same. Client is not saying I don't want online payments. I want, but initially client said keep UPI as the default online payment option. Later they come back and say that no, no, you know what? Remove UPI and keep credit card as the default payment option. So that's your change in requirement versus change in request. We will cover one more term, that is elicitation, and then I'll stop for any questions. Okay. Now, elicitation is one such word that you will often hear when you are working as a BA, even when you appear for interviews as well. So, what is elicitation? Elicitation is basically drawing out emotions, information, facts, or opinions from the other person. Okay. And by default what happens is we often ask questions from other. Suppose if I tell you that, you know, go and buy milk from the market. Okay, so immediately you will ask me a question, milk, okay, what brand? And second question will be quantity. Okay, do you want me to buy half liter milk, 1 liter milk, 2 liter milk, 3 liter milk? What's the quantity that we are talking about? Okay. Once you get answers to these questions, then you will start acting upon it. So basically, what are you doing through these questions? Okay. I gave you a simple task of buying milk. But instead of buying milk, what you did is you asked me questions like what brand are you looking for? What's the quantity we are talking about? Okay, so what are you trying to do by asking these questions? By asking these questions you are trying to get to more specific answers. Okay, so basically what you are doing is you are trying to extract information or draw out information that I have but I have not shared with you. Okay, so that is technically called elicitation. Okay, I have information with me, but what I thought is, maybe I thought it is not relevant, maybe I thought it is not necessary, or maybe I simply forgot. Okay, and that's why I did not share the information with you. So as a BA, what we do is we often, and we will, in our upcoming classes, we will look at some 8 to 9 elicitation techniques that we have at our disposal. Okay, 8 to 9 techniques that can be used. Actually, elicitation techniques, I mean, there are bunch of elicitation techniques. There are more than 10, 15 elicitation techniques available, but a lot of them are more of theoretical in nature. Like you can use it, but I'm not sure when are we going to apply those elicitation techniques. So in our training program, we'll be covering those 8 to 9 elicitation techniques that you will be actually using. Are you going to use all those 9 elicitation techniques? No. You will at max probably be using 2 to 3 elicitation techniques on your day-to-day basis. But knowing those 9 will help you that in case if you fall into any exceptional scenarios, you can refer from those. Okay. So elicitation is basically drawing out information or extracting information, emotion, facts, or opinion that the other person has, but they did not share with me. Okay. And what's the best way of extracting information, or what's the best way of executing elicitation? By nature, human beings are inquisitive. They ask questions. So as a BA, that's what we will do. We will ask questions. Okay. Well, from questions, I'll take a pause over here and see if there are any questions from you guys. Okay, I'll take the silence as no questions. Next is business rules. Okay. Now, what are business rules? Business rules are basically set of policies, frameworks, guidelines that often decide or govern how a business operation should be performed. Okay. So, to give you a very small example of it, okay, assume that I say, please enter your user ID and password, and then click on login button. Okay. A simple activity where a user is trying to log into my application. Now for login to my application, all a user has to do is enter their user ID and password. Okay. Now what is constituting as user ID? Okay, there is no clarification on that. I have said enter user ID and move forward, but what exactly constitutes as user ID? Okay. Similarly, imagine the case where you forgot your password. So you have forgotten your password and now you want to reset the password. So suppose you go through all the steps of providing the relevant information. The system has validated that you are the authorized user who is trying to reset the password. Then what happens at the end, where the application asks you to enter new password? If you see, there will be certain guidelines that there has to be certain number of capital letters, certain number of small letters, certain number of special characters, certain number of digits must be present, and then it must not be same as last 3 or 5 passwords that you have set. So these are certain conditions. What are these conditions called? They are called business rules. Why are they called business rules? Because they help define the procedures or the guidelines which governs how an operation should be performed. So the operation is resetting of password. Okay. And then those rules, how many small letters, capital letters, special characters, numbers, all those combination is basically the guidelines for performing an operation like forgot password. Similarly, what will constitute as user ID, what will constitute as password while trying to log in is basically trying to govern or create guidelines for the business operation of login. Okay. So when we write down requirements, and we will see in the upcoming classes in detail, when we write down requirements, business rules constitute an important part. Without business rules, you cannot think of writing down your requirements. Okay. So business rules will be any procedures, guidelines that provide additional information, or you can say that provide validation rules on a certain operation. Okay. For example, operation is login activity. For login, what kind of details do I require? And for those details, are there any rules that are applicable? Suppose user ID can be my email ID, but someone is trying to enter mobile number there, and that's not a correct way of entering information. If you are trying to enter mobile number is not equal to email ID. And the next word that we are going to look for is environments or regions. Okay. Again, one more term that you will often hear while doing the software development is which environment your code is in. Which environment are you working upon? Often what happens is the IT companies have set up multiple environments. Why they have set up multiple environments? To ensure that the main code or the main logic which resides in production environment is not impacted. Suppose you and I use WhatsApp on daily basis. Okay. Now, there will be a code base for WhatsApp that will be present in some environment. Okay. Now, suppose WhatsApp want to launch a new feature. WhatsApp want to make changes to its existing application. Then what happens? Because you and I are using WhatsApp on a day-to-day basis, so WhatsApp does not want us to get impacted. So what WhatsApp will do is WhatsApp will set up a parallel environment. Okay. What is that environment? It could be simple server. Okay. Technically speaking, it will be another server or maybe a clone within the same server. And what they will do is they will try to clone the exact production code into that environment. And then they will ask the BA, developer, and QA to whatever your requirement is. See, BA is only providing theoretical requirement. Okay, BA is not working on implementing those requirements as such. I am providing a document that is acting as guidelines for my developers, for my QA to implement the requirement. When looking at those documents, developer is actually writing the code. Okay. So where exactly is this developer going to write code? They are going to write code in an environment which has a copy of the original code so that they don't impact the user. Okay. Otherwise, what happens is, suppose if I don't have multiple environments, if I don't have multiple regions, what will happen is I will start making some changes today. And then we as users of WhatsApp will start experiencing some problems. We will start complaining to WhatsApp, hey, my send option is not working. I'm not able to attach images. Some or the other issue is coming. Okay. So in order to avoid any of those issues, we want to protect the application that is being used by customers. Okay. We don't want our customers to get impacted on a regular basis. We don't know how long our changes will take. I mean, we have a high level idea that it may take 2 to 3 weeks to implement or to enhance the application or to add a new feature. Okay. But can my customers suffer through a problem for 2 to 3 weeks? That's not a good case, na? They will leave WhatsApp and join some other social media platform. So that's not a good way. So in order to protect the application that is being used by the customer, IT companies have multiple environments or servers. Okay, so that they don't impact the customer directly. So that's where you will hear the names like development environment or development region, QA environment or QA region, UAT environment, that is user acceptance testing, pre-production environment, and production environment. Now production environment is of the most important nature, because production environment or production server is where customers will have access. Okay, customers will not have access to all these environments or regions. These environments or regions are meant for the development team to play around. Okay, to make the code changes, test those changes, ensure that everything is working as expected, that there is nothing broken, if you don't find any issues, problems, and even to give demo to the stakeholders. We use all one of these environments. Okay. Once everything is okay, tested, customer is also sorry, the stakeholder is also okay, they are fine with the changes, then the code is merged into production environment. And once it has been merged into production environment, then we as end customers start seeing the changes. Okay. So imagine for us merging will take 1 to 2 hour, 3 hour, maybe 4 hour. So 4 hour outage is acceptable for me. I will not use WhatsApp for 4 hours. Good. During that time, you merge your changes into production environment. And that 4 hour outage is better than not being able to use WhatsApp for 2 to 3 weeks. The next keyword is estimations. In IT industry or in any industry, even in our day-to-day life, it is impossible to imagine not using estimations. Okay, even when I call you and say that we have a meeting at, let's say, 11 a.m., how much time will you take to come from your home to office? Okay, immediately you will give me an estimation. It may take around 45 minutes, 1 hour, half an hour. Okay, so estimations are ingrained in our bloodstreams. Okay, so basically estimations are techniques that are used to define or to measure the work. Okay, what's the best estimation unit? Hours. Okay, so we will often we will often see hours as the estimation unit. So if I give you a task, immediately the manager will ask, what's the estimation? So estimation is basically they're trying to ask you, how long are you going to take to finish up the work? Measure the work and then tell me how long are you going to take, how much time do you need. If you That is one consistent thing across the world, that estimations by default are asked in hours. The next term that we are going to see is change management. Okay, now this is one term that we must be aware of, though we may not be using it more often. But change management is more about managing different aspects, like the timelines for a project, the resourcing, the budget for a project, while trying to implement the requirements. See, here in change, through change request, we get a new request from client that tells me what kind of changes are they looking for. While working on this CR or change request, there will be times, okay, like someone may resign, someone may go off, some people may be out of office, some people may be on sick leave, some people may be slow, some people may be extremely fast, some people will take time to understand what the project is, some people will do it fast. Okay, so considering all those factors, how are you going to manage of ensuring that you still deliver the work in the committed timelines? Okay. Now again, that is something that you as a BA will not be working on day to day basis. Okay. As a BA, you have your fixed set of roles and responsibilities, and managing your team or managing their work or assigning them the task is not one such thing that you will be doing. Okay, that is something that for which we have project manager or scrum masters. But as a BA, again, I must be aware of what I have to do and what people around me have to do. Okay, in order to be able to strike a better conversation, in order to build a better understanding of the work. Okay, so that not just I understand the work, but also if needed, I can pitch in and help them as well. Okay, now what we will do is we will go through certain different kind of people that are involved within this entire software development work. Okay, now these are the different roles that we will often hear about. Okay, so, and even in our upcoming classes also, we will see how the technical people, like the technical architects, development lead, test lead, and the developers and testers under the leads will work together with business analyst in order to deliver the work. Okay, so we'll start with the first term, that is stakeholder. What exactly is a stakeholder? Stakeholder is a person or set of person that are impacted by the work we are doing. Okay, now for today's sake, we will just keep our definition restricted to person who owns the business idea. Again, in our upcoming classes, we will see that when we go through stakeholder management, we will see that stakeholders could be different people. Like there could be business stakeholders, there could be project stakeholders, there could be third party stakeholders, but all of them will have one thing in common, that they will be impacted by the project, by the software that we are building. Okay, so among the stakeholders, the popular ones which we often refer to as clients is called business stakeholders. Okay, so business stakeholders are the people who actually own the business idea and who are going to fund me for implementing their idea. Okay, it's just because they don't have enough IT expertise, I have IT expertise, so they are going to give me the money and their idea and ask me to implement it. So that's why I will keep referring to them as stakeholders. Okay, in our discussions going forward, we will be using the term stakeholders only. Okay, and especially when we go through the stakeholder management, we will further refine this to business stakeholders only. Okay, now as much as possible, like I mentioned during our classes and while asking questions as well, we'll try to refer to the term business stakeholders alone, so that we build that vocabulary of those technical words that will give anyone an impression that we are actually working as a business analyst. Okay, so stakeholders are the people who own and sponsor our idea, who own and sponsor the business idea. Next one is SME, that is subject matter expert. Okay, so as the name suggests, these people will have expertise in a given subject. Okay, the subject could be anything. Suppose I'm working in banking domain. Okay, now I want to implement digital banking, or let's say mobile banking app for a very famous bank. Maybe I'll hire an SME who knows the small minute details about the mobile banking aspect. What kind of different functionalities we may have to build, how do we start with it. Okay, so SMEs are basically subject matter experts that have built expertise because of their experience in a given subject only. Remember, SMEs could be technical, SMEs could be non-technical as well. Okay, for example, non-technical would be, I just have experience about banking domain, I know in and out of banking domain, or maybe within banking domain I have experience about core banking, for example loans or home loans for that example. Okay, so there could be expertise in the non-technical, that is business side, or there could be expertise in terms of technical areas as well. Okay, now SMEs could be an overlapping term. So suppose you are a technical architect who has very good technical knowledge. Now you could be regarded as an SME in your area as well. Now, what are consultants? Now, consultants and SMEs are often used interchangeably, but some of the organizations, what they do is, if they hire an SME on contract basis, they refer to them as consultants. Okay? Or consultant often comes as a designation while rolling out offers as well. Okay? So again, SMEs and consultants will be used interchangeably. Both are used to provide consultation in the field in which they have expertise. Okay, now what is technical architects? Now technical architects are basically the people who have wonderful sound technical knowledge about the skills that about the technology that they operate in. Suppose you have a very good and a very sound knowledge of Java. You could be a Java technical architect. Okay. Suppose you have very good hold on Python. You could be a Python technical architect. What do I mean by Java technical architect or Python or any technology specific technical architect? So basically, it means that you have a very strong hold on that technology, that you understand the how to use that technology in order to achieve the task. Okay, you are not responsible as a technical architect to write down code. The idea is that you understand technology so well that you can identify whether the given technology will solve problem or not. Suppose I come to you with a ask that I want to build a website for my business. Okay, and because of your grasp over technology, you may tell to me, hey, you know what, Pega will not be ideal for building the website for you. I'm a Pega, I'm technical architect, and I can say that Pega is not used or will not be advisable for building the website. Why don't you check with some other technical architects who may be able to guide you better? Because at least in my knowledge, in my experience over Pega, that's the use case. So for a business analyst, our go-to person after we write down requirements is technical architect. Whatever requirements we write down in the form of a document, obviously we want to ensure whether those requirements could be implemented via technology or not. Okay? So that's where technical architects pitch in. Those technical architects will help us go through, will help us by going through the requirements, and then help evaluate whether which technology can be used to achieve those requirements, and then create a design document highlighting how it can be achieved. Okay. So technical architects, just to differentiate between technical architects and regular developer or development team or development lead, is that technical architects have good sound technical knowledge and they are not doing any coding. They are primarily responsible for designing. Okay. Suppose I want to construct a house on a land. What will I do? I will call in architect. Why will I call architect? The architect will create the blueprint. The architect will talk to me that how do you want to utilize this land, how many rooms you want, how many halls you want, how many kitchens you want, what's your expectation, do you want well ventilated rooms, or what's your expectation basically in terms of house. Depending on my requirements, whatever requirements I give to the architect will create a blueprint. Okay. Once that blueprint is done, the architect will not start constructing. Okay, for construction I will call in mason and laborers separately. Okay, so don't feel offended like if you are a developer, but mason and the laborers are more like development lead and developers who are now actually responsible for procuring items like cement, rods, and then constructing the house from scratch. Okay, an architect only gave you a design and then moved away. Okay, or maybe monitoring you. So the same thing happens in the world of software development as well. Here, when as a BA I give requirements, technical architect will create the design, development lead and the developers will work together to implement the design. Now the next three terms are pretty simple: development lead, test lead, and defects. Okay, so who is a development lead? Basically, development lead is the person who is leading set of developers. A test lead is a person, test lead is often known as test lead or QA lead, who is basically leading a team of QAs or testers. Okay. Now the question comes, okay, lead is someone who is leading developers or QA. Then what exactly developers or QA are doing? So developers are responsible for writing down the code. QAs are responsible for testing the code that the developer has written to ensure that the code is working as expected. Now we move on to the last part, because we are talking about developer who is writing the code, and then development lead who is leading a bunch of developers, QA lead who is testing the code, sorry, QA who is testing the code, and QA lead who is leading bunch of QAs. So then it brings us to the important part, that is called defect, bug, or issue. Okay. Whenever QA is doing testing, whenever they are testing the code, or even when developers are doing the unit testing themselves, okay, whenever the developers are doing testing or QA is doing testing, okay, whenever they see any deviation in the standard or the expected output, okay, the deviation will be termed as defect or bug. Let me give you an example of it. Suppose I want to generate ID cards for a health insurance company. Okay. Now I give you a requirement, simple requirement, and the requirement says when you are printing ID cards, first name should be there, last name should be there. Okay. That is will be present in the ID card. Now, what happens is when I am testing this functionality, that a member has enrolled into a health insurance policy, and now we have to generate ID card for that member. For generating ID card, we must display their first name, last name. Okay. Now, what happens is this is the expected output. Okay. Then there is concept of actual output. That means before executing any testing, I am expecting that ID card should have first name, last name printed. That is what is mentioned in my requirement as well. Whereas when I execute the code, what I am getting is there is no first name, it is only showing last name. First name is coming as spaces. Okay. Now there is a deviation or a gap between expected output and actual output. Okay. This gap is called defect or bug or issue or problem with my code. Okay. In such cases, what will happen is the QA will report the issue to BA, that I have executed so and so scenario. This was my expected output, and this is the actual output I am getting. BA will review the scenario, and BA will confirm that yes, this is a gap, meaning this is a defect, bug, or issue. So let's assign it to the developer to fix the issue. So developer will then try to fix the issue. Once the issue is fixed, the QA will again do the retesting of it to ensure that the defect is no longer there. Okay. So what is defect? Defect is basically the gap or deviation from the expected output. Okay. Suppose if my expected output, suppose if my expected output and actual output are same, like this. If my expected output and actual output are same, that means I'm all good. No defect, no bugs, no problem, no issues here. Because my actual output is matching the expected output. Okay. So whenever there's a match, no gap. Whenever there's a mismatch between expected and actual output, that means we have some gap, and that gap is referred to as defect. So that's why in simple language, what is a defect or a bug? A defect or a bug is basically deviation from the expected output. Whatever output I am expecting, if I don't get the expected output, that means I have some defect or bug over here. Okay. Now I'll stop over here and see if there are any questions from you guys. Are you guys able to follow along? I mean, do you find it being like easy to comprehend or not able to follow along? Any yes, no?
We are understanding it, sir. The terminology is little different, so it is taking time for us.
Okay. Okay. If there's any questions at any stage, just let me know. Okay. I know it will take a while, but that's why we keep saying just keep practicing. Okay. So if you are not able to practice, let's say individually, the best way to practice is by talking to each other, like between you and me, between the other students of the group, so that you build that vocabulary. The important part is not those hi-fi English words. The important part is these technical terms, like using the word elicitation, scope, estimations, change request, environments. That is what that matters. Okay. How you put your English in and around those technical words is up to you. But if you remember these terms, if you are able to use them as needed, then you are done. I mean, you will be able to clear the interviews at ease. I'm not saying you will be 100% clearing interviews, but you will not have difficult time preparing for it. So one more point that I would like to mention, and we will cover it in our upcoming classes as well, that as a BA you are responsible for building good rapport or relationships, not just with your stakeholders but your team members as well. So that is one key aspect we have to focus on, and that is networking. Okay. So talk with other students, ensure that you build a good rapport with them as well, because we never know who will help us when. Okay. And that is where, when we actually formulate the group, we will set up a WhatsApp group wherein you will have the opportunity obviously to talk to each other, share information over there. And once you all enroll, uh, I mean those who have not yet enrolled, once you enroll, you will also be part of that group, and you will also be given a separate link for the classes. Okay? The current link will be deactivated soon, and we'll have a separate link for our actual classes. Okay? So that will give you an opportunity again to interact and network. So as a BA, or not just BA, any person in any stream whatsoever, whether you are part of IT, non-IT, what will really take you forward is your networking. At some point in time, you will realize that once you cross that 15-20 years of experience, hiring no longer takes place through Naukri.com or LinkedIn. Okay? Hiring actually takes place through networking. So it's always best to start investing in your networking as early as possible. Okay. Interact with people, build good rapport with them. When you build good rapport with your peers, with your colleagues, that eventually helps you build good rapport with your stakeholders as well. Okay. On that note, we will end the discussion for today. We'll again connect tomorrow at the same time. Sorry, just one thing, Bindu, you mentioned, can we get the notes you are saying? So, Bindu, we have this Google Classroom link. I'm not sure if you have access to it or not, but all these notes are getting uploaded to the Google Classroom. Okay, so we have this Google Classroom wherein all the first 3-day demo series and the yesterday's class and today's class also. So I'll be uploading today's class notes here as well, but you can access it all through this Google Classroom. Now if you don't have access to Google Classroom, I would suggest you ping on this number on WhatsApp, okay, and then ask for the Google Classroom link. I just typed in the number, okay. You can make a note of that number and ping there to get access to the Google Classroom link. Again, this note also will be uploaded in the Google Classroom. Okay, any other questions? Sure, I'll take the silence as no questions. Thank you guys. We'll connect again tomorrow.